Hello, hello. Welcome to the PG-ish podcast. I'm Erin with your parental guidance to help you grow yourself as a parent and raise healthy, happy, and successful humans. Hello, my friend. I am so excited for my guest, Libby Ward, today. I came across her Instagram, a couple of months ago and fell in love with her authenticity. Her content is relatable and basically gives a voice to all of the things you likely think but don't admit to many people, if any. Now, if you don't know Libby by the social handle of Diary of an Honest Mom, Libby is a digital creator, speaker, and mental health advocate with a deep commitment to breaking the cycles of trauma. Amen to that, right? She is known for talking about hard things through storytelling and humor. She uses the power of vulnerability to help women break through the barriers that may be holding them back. Libby has helped pave the way for women to say, I am important and I am enough. Through her highly relatable videos on motherhood, she exudes her passion for letting moms know it's okay to be imperfect, and it's important to take care of yourself. These are things we all know, yet we still struggle. As a mental health advocate, she challenges the long-held social norm that women should put themselves last because she knows it's the only way to break the cycle of burnout prevalent among modern-day mothers and begin a new narrative around motherhood. Now, having said all that, if you need to prioritize your mental health this season, and I mean, who doesn't, with all of the busyness, illnesses, and stress of wanting to make the holidays utterly perfect and please everyone, which again, I advise you to create boundaries or new traditions that don't add more stress to your life. But I suggest reaching out to BetterHelp Online Therapy so that you don't navigate this season alone. Take a simple quiz to match with the best therapist for you. BetterHelp is affordable and convenient from your home. Save 10% with the code PGISH. That's PGISH. A link to BetterHelp can be found in the show notes. But on to the good stuff. Let me introduce you to Libby. I am so excited to talk to you today, Libby. Thank you for being here with me. And before we dive into all the juicy stuff, I just really want to start off by saying that I just appreciate all that you're doing. I think you have given a voice to women that we've just kind of stuffed down for years. And whether that was like we were too afraid to speak up because we didn't want to be shamed, or we didn't want to be the one who was only feeling that one thing, just ostracized. So you have given a voice to all these women, and thank you so much for that. I think we all know that being a mother is hard and exhausting and isolating. I'm a single mom, so I just feel it, as we all do, not to say like I'm any different than anyone else. But again, just thank you for normalizing that imbalance in motherhood that we're all feeling and the guilt of all of it that we're too afraid to share. So you're blazing the trail, and thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much for having me today and for saying all those kind things. I'm always so humbled when people say such nice things about me. I just like to share the things that I feel and think and experience because I've learned that more often than not, most people have experienced them. So I'm glad to lead the way.
Yeah. Well, thank you again. I think I found you on Instagram, a couple months ago, and was just like, this is my new best friend and she doesn't even know it. So yeah, I'm just excited to hear more about your story, though, because I think we have such cool stories that we also don't share, and we pivot a lot. And so I don't think you've been doing this for very long. So can we just do a brief overview of how Diary of an Honest Mom started?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll give you the short version, which is I've worked in education as an educational assistant for 10 years. And in March 2020, I was working in a grade 7 classroom, and a bunch of the kids were doing these like weird arm movement dance things. I wouldn't even categorize it as dancing, but they would have said it was. And I was like, what are you guys doing? And they were like, TikTok dances. And I was like, what's TikTok? And and they were like, oh, it's this app where, you can do dances and fun stuff. And people like them and share them. And I was like, that sounds dangerous. You shouldn't be that app. That sounds like a scary internet thing. And these bad people don't go on the internet. And then a week later, the world shut down and I was bored pretty quickly, like busy with kids, but also my brain started to hurt. So I was like, I'm going to see what this TikTok thing is all about. I joined TikTok, fell in love with the platform, realized it wasn't just teenagers dancing around in whatever they dance around in. And it was educational and authentic and honest. And I loved it. And I started making videos pretty quickly. no intention other than to be creative and to find other people maybe like me and connect with them.
Mm-hmm.
Never heard of being a content creator or an influencer. I didn't know what any of it meant. I was just making videos and they started going viral. So long story short, my platform began to grow and grow and grow. And then in September, so 6 months later, there was all these rumors that TikTok was going to get shut down. And I was like, I don't want to lose my people. So I started an Instagram account, again, not knowing about anything. And so I started an Instagram account, didn't do anything about it till January 2021. I was like, you know what? I'm going to put my old TikToks on here. And it just blew up. Like everything just exploded. 10,000 new followers a month until the summer when I hit 50K. And then I hit 100K by the end of the summer. And the rest is kind of history. I decided to quit my job and leave education and start sharing the honest mom truths as part of my career, as opposed to just something I'm doing in my spare time. And it's been an absolute roller coaster. And I absolutely love connecting with women every day and being the first to tell them that they're not crazy for thinking something.
I love that. I have resisted TikTok for so long. I'm like, I'm too old. I don't understand technology. Like, I'm happy on Instagram, but this is a whole other world over there. So
the whole other world. And it's even like people think reels are the same. They're not.
No.
It's a whole other world. And of course, there's pros and cons to both. But that was really my entry into creating things for other people. I mean, before TikTok, the only people I saw on Instagram were people that I knew and like a couple celebrities. Like I didn't even know what an influencer was. I didn't follow them. I had no idea about anything. I knew like Pinterest moms and that's about it.
Right.
So it's been really interesting, like figuring out the whole like TikTok mom thing and then coming over to Instagram, and the vibe is different and the way people interact is different and how mean they are is like, it's so different and fascinating. But I love being able to connect with people on both because there's a lot of people only on TikTok and a lot of people on Instagram.
That's so cool. And I mean, your mission is all about empowering women with being weird and authentic and having fun. And how did that truly become like your mission?
It started off as just being relatable mom humor. So I mostly just made jokes about it in the beginning. And what happened was I would have videos go viral that, you know, people who are my target audience would think like, oh, that's funny. But then there'd be trolls that would be like, oh, you're a terrible mom, or you hate your kids if you think that, or why did you have kids? And so I started responding to these comments on TikTok more thoughtfully and sharing more of my heart and sharing more of my story and sharing more of how I came to be someone who wanted to talk about things and joke about things that no one else was doing at that time. And I drew in even more people who really saw that like heartfelt side of me and more of the reasoning behind why I was doing what I was doing. And so for a long time, I struggled with, well, do I want to be funny, Libby? Like, do I want to be like mom who makes jokes about motherhood and help moms that way? Or do I want to be heartfelt, more educational, more lesson teaching Libby? And I felt like I was like, I have to be put into a box. And then I decided I don't want to do either of those things. I think that I can be humorous and heartfelt. I think that I can be traumatized and healing. I think I can be a plethora of things because that's what motherhood is, right? And society also tells us as women, as mothers, you have to be one or the other. You're either a perfectionist or you're a disaster. You either love your kids or you hate your kids. And it's like, no, like I can experience positive and negative emotions at the same time. Joke about something that's actually really serious because that's my way of coping and connecting. And so I decided I'm going to do all of it in hopes to validate, to encourage, and to empower women and moms to just share their stories and be who they want to be without feeling like they have to live up to anybody else's expectations other than their own. And I love being able to do both.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that piece of like the and, right? Like we can be one and the other at the same time, because that's just life. We're humans. We have those emotions. And yeah, you don't have to be put into that box. I mean, I catch myself all the time, like adding disclaimers to things. Just for an example, like the last 3 weeks, I've had my children in a row because of Thanksgiving and just weird schedule conflicts. And I found myself telling people, gosh, I'm like so tired. I'm like, but I love my kids. You know, it's like, why do we feel the need to add that disclaimer? It's like, I'm human. I can feel what I feel and be okay with it and not have to like absorb other people's reactions.
Right. And my hope is that as time goes on and as we speak more openly and honestly about the struggles of motherhood, that it becomes this thing of not needing a disclaimer. Like, of course you love your kids. Of course, all of these things. I can say a negative thing without having to make sure that everybody else knows that I know the positive thing too.
Exactly. This just popped in my head, but why do you think things are changing now that the way they are, like that we can have these conversations versus like our parents? They did things so differently. Like we're breaking cycles. We're doing all these things so differently. Why do you think the world has changed?
It's a lot of things. One thing I've been thinking a lot about lately is even the stigma around mental health or the stigma around struggling in motherhood and how women have been treated over the last century specifically. You know, it wasn't more than 100 years ago that if a woman was struggling, her husband or her father or someone could have her locked up.
Right.
Could have her children taken away, could have everything stripped away. And so we talk about this very realistic, horrible thing that can happen when you speak out and speak openly. And even for decades after that, even though those things might not have been able to happen, that still stuck with those women. And, you know, when we talk about cycles of trauma and, you know, unhealthy cycles of communication and toxic family cycles, the reason we call it a cycle is because it has happened for generations and generations and generations. And so those things were passed down. It wasn't as though our parents were becoming parents saying, I'm going to screw up my kids. I'm going to do this bad thing. They were doing all they'd ever known. And we now have not only less stigma, but so much more access to resources, to research. We're the most educated generation in history. We're the most educated generation of women in history. We're the most empowered generation of women, even though obviously there's still a lot of work to do. Like we have more opportunities in work, in education, in all of those things than we ever have before. You think of the books that are out now that we have access to that can provide us the support we need in breaking cycles and give us the language to talk about it that they didn't have. And aside from books, it's like even social media. It's even interacting with other people who are saying, I'm going to do it differently and getting ideas from them and inspiration from them. For so long, women have just lived in their little bubble of their little house or their little community and their little family. And even though they may not have enjoyed lots of different aspects of it, they really didn't have any other choice or access to be able to change anything for themselves.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. I think for so long, we were just in our own homes having the same conversations with the same people. So there wasn't much expansion. But now with the internet and so many other resources, it's like, oh, other people think this way too.
Well, I remember like 2.5 years ago when I joined TikTok, the first time I saw a cycle breaking TikTok, and I was absolutely floored. I actually had never heard the term cycle breaking. I knew that I grew up in a completely different way than anybody else I knew grew up. I knew that the stories that I shared about my childhood varied drastically from anyone I knew personally, and that it made me feel other. I knew all of the experiences I had and I could acknowledge them, but I legitimately felt like I was some type of, not unicorn, but I felt relatively unique, relatively like I'm the only person I know that has gone through these things. I don't even know how to talk to people about them because they're either so shocked they don't know what to say, or they just want to give me sympathy, or it just makes me feel other. So I feel like I have to fit in with all these other adults and stereotypical mothers that I thought looked a certain way. And I hid that side of me. And when I joined TikTok and I saw all these people sharing these experiences of what it's like for them being cycle breakers, I was like, oh, that's what I'm doing. Like I had been doing the work, have the language to talk about it, or a community of people to say, hey, is this a thing that you're experiencing too? I just did it on my own. And that's empowering in and of itself.
Oh, for sure. I know, even over Thanksgiving, I was with my dad, who I grew up with. It was just him and I basically in our home. And he was in his own kind of way asking for forgiveness for like my childhood, you know? And I was like, oh, dang. Okay. I didn't know we were going to go there, you know, but like now that I'm much older, I was like, well, I can give you the grace. Like 30 years ago, you didn't know what the heck you were doing. And let alone you were a single dad doing it by yourself in a different time that there were no resources, raising a girl that you don't know how to like raise. It was like, oh, But also, I'm going to do things differently with my children, and just kind of that awareness is so important too.
It's the power of and.
Mm-hmm.
I talk to a lot of people who have a really hard time admitting that the way their parents did things damaged them or
Yeah.
hurt them or didn't provide them with what they needed growing up, and that they are now having to recover from that. They don't want to admit that because they feel as though saying that means that they don't love their parents or
Right.
that didn't do their best. And it's the same mentality of you can't
Mm-hmm.
about parenting or you don't love your kids. And it's like, it isn't this dichotomy. It's the power of and. It's the power of they did these things or neglected to do these things and it hurt me and I want to do things differently for my kids. And I can still love them and still see their perspective without ignoring the fact that it did damage.
Exactly. And yeah, I mean, and it's hard when you're reparenting yourself while raising your kids. You're like, we're just going to fumble through this. It's going to be hard.
It's so hard because it's like you're not just parenting them, you're reparenting yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And the things that you're having to reparent the most are those triggers, those traumas, or those high emotion experiences or states where something your kid does or says or something that's happening is making you feel so dysregulated in your body. And that is when you're having to do the reparenting. It's not when you're feeling calm and kumbaya and everything's great. It's when like you're dysregulated, I'm dysregulated, I don't have the skills to regulate myself. I'm trying to teach them to you while trying to apply them to myself. And I've only had 1 to 5 years practice doing this. And I've had 25 or 30 years of doing it the unhealthy way.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm trying to recondition myself while conditioning you. And that is really, really hard.
It is. And I feel like at the same time, like when I get so triggered, once I kind of calm down, I want to have that repair session with my kids, but I'm like, I don't know if they're going to get this. Like even just last weekend when I was getting Christmas out, our house was a disaster and that the mess creates a chaos in my brain. And that's very triggering to me. And I just like lost it. I'm like 3 weeks with my kids, my house is a mess. Like no one's helping, just like all the things that go on in our heads. And it's just like, yeah, this is really hard. And I'm going to try to explain to my kids what's going on and not expect them to understand, but at least like I'm communicating versus what I experienced in childhood, where just everyone shut down and stonewalled,
Well, you're normalizing the conversation too.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes when I've done the repair and I think they're not getting a word of this, this makes no sense to them whatsoever. But I feel like I'm just normalizing the conversation so that one day when something does happen and I have to have that conversation, it's not coming out of left field that I'm coming down and have a talk about how I'm human and how I make mistakes and how they don't deserve it. It's something that they at least have built a little bit of understanding around.
Yeah. Which then they take into adulthood too. They can then have those conversations.
What's crazy to me is that is a normal or will become a normal experience. And I am fascinated to see a generation of kids who have experienced adults in their lives taking accountability for their actions as a normal thing.
Right? I know. I got goosebumps because it's going to be amazing.
So fascinating to me what that would look like.
Seriously. But how do you take care of yourself? Like, that power of and is so important and that awareness is important. But like for you personally, how do you give yourself that grace and compassion when the world is just chaos around you?
Well, I've had to get really honest about what is important to me and to our family. I spent a long time prioritizing what I thought I was supposed to prioritize, whether that, if we're talking about the holidays, getting the perfect picture or doing this certain tradition or getting things done a certain way, that caused more burnout and that caused me to get more triggered and that caused me to be more stressed out because I was trying to maintain all these ridiculous, unrealistic standards. So going down and being like, what is actually important to our family? What is valuable to our family? And then what do I have the capacity to do? So my capacity with a 6 and an 8-year-old is different than my capacity was with a 3 and a 1-year-old. My capacity when I have a partner who's around more is different than when, the last 3 months he's been away at training. And so for me, it's this constant self-awareness, this daily, and this is why I made the journal I made, just to help me get into this daily aware of what are the what are the circumstances right now? Are we sick? Do we have support? What is important to us? Where's our time going to go? How stressed are we feeling? And then once I have an idea of what my values are and what's important, and then how much capacity I have, then I decide what I'm going to try and fit into a day. And the idea is that I do things for myself. And that's not like going to the spa once a month. That's like getting outside, like check mark, you left the house today. Check mark, you drank 4 glasses of water today. Those very simple things that take care of my biological and physiological needs. I feel like we talk about self-care like it's this like amazing rainbow unicorn, hours and hours and hundreds of dollars, when really it's just saying I am going to intentionally take the time to do things that I know are going to make me feel better, and not even feel better like make me happier, but make it so that I have more capacity for stress.
Yeah.
So when I exercise, I know that something that my kids do is going to stress me out less than if I hadn't exercised that day. Something simple is like taking the bubble wrap from one of our Amazon packages and popping it 3 feet from my face. In one situation, I might be able to take a deep breath and say, please go to the sunroom to do that. I can't handle that noise. And then the other situation might snap at them. Like the little things. It's this constant awareness, but then it's the little, make sure you do some type of exercise. Make sure you're drinking water. Make sure you're not scrolling till 1 a.m. I struggle with that one. But it's all those little things that just, it's so dumb because it's like, we know the things that are good for us and they're so hard to do. And when we do them, we see the effects they have on us, but still they're so hard to do.
They're so hard. Sleep is one of my biggest issues where I'm like, I know sleep's really important and I should get 7 to 9 hours at night. And I'm like, why is it 12:30? Why am I not in bed? I'm so tired. Like, go put yourself to bed.
And I have this terrible habit of being like, if I just do 2 hours of work tonight, tomorrow won't be as stressful. And then I wake up the next day and I somehow find enough work to fill the whole day and a new project I want to do that keeps me up until 1 a.m. the next night.
Yeah.
And having ADHD, like I was diagnosed about 6 months ago as a 34-year-old, and everything just began to make so much sense with the hyper focusing and the projects and the starting things and not finishing them and having a hard time focusing. So yeah, it's a struggle.
Yeah. Adulting. Yeah. I think you made a very important point though, of like, self-care is not the over the top stuff. It's just the little things, the little habits that we can do every day and like those pockets of time, right? Like, it's like when you're getting your coffee or your tea, it's like taking a couple breaths or making sure that you're walking at lunchtime. It's like not crazy stuff, right? But it makes a huge difference.
Yeah. I read a good book this year called Atomic Habits. Have you read it?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, it's so good.
I mean, am I fantastic at putting it all into practice? No, but it's atomic habits, right? It's adding little things every day, stacking our habits, putting things into our life that we know are going to be better for us, not making this massive life change.
Yeah.
It can be applied to everything from self-care to breaking the cycle to being more active to our work habits. It's just those little changes. And I have to sometimes step back and acknowledge all the little changes I've made. Because sometimes when I'm in my spirally self-shame zone, I can be like, look at you, you read all these books and you listen to the podcasts and you consume the content and you do the work and you're still a mess. You're still a disaster. You're still failing. You're still, all the names I call myself. No matter what you do, like you're still in this state of overwhelm. But I have to step back and say, wait a second, look at all these little changes you've made and how much positive it has inserted into your life and how much more capacity it has given you. And look at your reactivity now versus a year ago or 6 months ago. And you are actually making change. But I think we sometimes become so obsessed or so focused on making those changes that it doesn't feel like it's happening fast enough. We forget how far we've come.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm such an advocate for celebrating the little things, which again, I'm not great at, I think specifically like the maintenance side of anything, of being an adult, of celebration, of any of it. It's like, I just want to do it well the first time and like have that happen again and again, but I'm like, no, there's always a little nuance that's different, and there's a maintenance part of it. And it's just, but again, recognizing how far we've come is so important.
Absolutely.
I think that goes back to values too. I think that you mentioned that a couple minutes ago of having those values kind of be your North Star to make those decisions, to give you that capacity. Like that just kind of works hand in hand with those habits because they're not going to be perfect.
The number of times that I have done things or continued to do things, whether it's habits or traditions or parenting things, simply because that's what I had always done. And the reason I had always done it was because I met somebody one time who thought it was the most important thing. And I never stopped to ask myself, do you think this is the most important thing? So I just kept doing it. And then all of a sudden I was like, wait, like this, I don't have to do this. Like no one's making me do this. I'm just doing it because I thought I had to. And holy smokes, I could just stop and I'm going to have X amount more hours in my life.
Yeah.
Just by deciding to stop doing this thing that I don't even know why I started in the first place.
Yeah. And it may not even feel good, but you just decided to do it one day.
Yeah, absolutely. I had pressured myself for a lot of years to be the Christmas house. So I didn't have parents who were able or willing to cook a big Christmas meal and have like a family dinner, and nobody else offered to do it. And so I offered to do it one year. And for some reason, I wanted it to be on Christmas Day. And for a good number of years, I realized I was a basket case on Christmas Day because I was not only the mom with young kids doing Christmas morning, like the wrapping the night, all the things. But then I'm having to host other adults and cook a turkey dinner and get the house clean between opening presents and having dinner and then entertain people. And then I'm the one putting the kids to bed after it all. And I realized I am a basket case on Christmas Day and I'm not fun. I don't enjoy it. I don't want my kids to remember me like that.
Right.
And it was last year actually that I was like, why do I do this to myself? Like, who made this expectation that I had to cook this dinner and it had to be on Christmas Day?
Yeah.
No, like I can just decide to do it differently. I can decide to say we're not doing it Christmas Day or I'm not cooking a dinner. And last year we ordered takeout on Christmas Day and it was the best thing we ever did. And I'm like, goodness me, I've been a mom for 8 years. It took me 8 years to be like, oh, I don't have to do this.
But we do that with so many things, just because, yes, based on tradition or the generational patterns. And it's like, no, I can stop doing this and do what feels good to me. Like that's not selfish.
Right. Absolutely. And that's the other part of it is feeling selfish. And then even more complicated, if you have people, relationships in your life who make you feel like or tell you that it is selfish. So we're already like telling ourselves that it's selfish. We're already struggling to put our needs first. We're already struggling to prioritize our need for wellness over other people's feelings or expectations. So when we make that choice, it often isn't a super confident choice. It's I know this is best for me, but I still feel uncomfortable because I have a history of doing things based on other people. So if people even suggest or mention or say anything about how it's selfish, it hurts even more. And then it makes it harder to do it.
Yeah.
So I've had to really fight against that. I'm like, it's just not sustainable. It's not sustainable to do things just because other people expect them or I think they expect them.
Exactly. And that's what I love to promote on PGish too. It's like, we have to get back to feeling good in ourselves, to be our best selves, because our kids are going to mirror that. Our friends are going to mirror that. They're always watching.
Right.
What can we teach others? And it's not selfish. If we're going to be our best selves, we got to be our best advocates.
Right. And if I, as a mom, can say, this is a priority for me, or my rest is a priority, my ability to cope with stress is a priority, I am choosing myself, I'm going to be honest about how hard this is for me and share that with you. That hopefully means that, as our children become adults, they can take that into their adult lives and even their relationships with us. When we're making decisions as the in-laws and they're making decisions and you're trying to figure it out, it's not this combative thing. It's this honest thing of, hey, this part of the holidays is really important to me and I'm going to voice it confidently, knowing you're not going to shame me. And then you're also going to do the same thing. And we can all make space for each other's needs and priorities and we can compromise it instead of it being this game of everyone trying to people please, everyone resentful. And then the secretly resentful stuff comes out in gossip or snide comments or unhealthy communication things, which fractures our relationship.
Absolutely.
Maybe if we just grow up being honest with our families about the fact that we're human beings and so are they, that we can all just live more fruitful lives and communicate healthily with each other.
That's the goal.
Right? Like, how amazing would it be to be that in-law or that parent, the adult parent who gets a call from your kid who has kids or doesn't and says, hey, like, I'm feeling really burnt out. Can I skip Christmas dinner or can I skip XYZ? And you just go, yeah, like you need that, you do that. And like, no one's guilt tripping anyone.
Yeah.
I feel like when I really struggled with martyrdom and really like putting myself last and feeling so proud about it, the problem with that is that not only do you make more snide comments and be resentful because your needs aren't being met, but you're kind of proud of it. But then you also expect everybody else to do the same. You expect everybody else to act in the same way you do. And it's just not fair. So I think we just need to stop feeling like prioritizing ourselves is selfish and making other people feel like it's selfish as well.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's just healthy, period.
Right?
Yeah. We are running out of time. Where can my listeners find you? Tell me more about your journal.
Yeah. You can find me on TikTok and Instagram at Diary of an Honest Mom. And my website is the same. I just came out with a journal called the Honest Mom Journal, the Struggling Mom's Guide to Struggling Less. And it's essentially a morning and nighttime guided journal that takes no more than 5 minutes that prompts you to become more self-aware of realities you're facing, circumstances that could make your day easier or harder, helping you to prioritize whether you're going to be present today or productive or peaceful, and set realistic expectations for what you're going to get done in a day. And then the evening one really just helps you to reframe your mindset around guilt and help you to give yourself grace and look at the positive things from your day and not go to bed feeling like you're the worst. So it's really, a journal to help moms get some self-awareness and struggle a little bit less. Cause I don't think it's never going to not be a struggle. The fact that you're a mom and the fact that you care about your kids means that it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
And I just want to help moms to get some perspective and struggle a little bit less. So you can find it on Amazon, the Honest Mom Journal.
Awesome. I love it. I'll have to check it out for sure. Thank you for joining me. It's been awesome to talk to you.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Libby's pretty great, right? So go check her out on TikTok or Instagram and pick up her journal. Links to her website, social platforms, and her journal are in the show notes. Thank you for joining us today. Please share with a friend so that more parents can grow alongside their kiddo like you. See you next time.